it was a year ago when the New York Times, Politico, all of these publications comes out with the bombshell story that the United States military had been studying UFOs. Bombshell. Oh my God, they're studying aliens. Everybody, with the exception of the UFO community, who collectively said, no shit, Sherlock. But nevertheless, it was brought into mainstream. How can it be a conspiracy theory if it's now mainstream? So these people had to start taking it seriously. The New York Times has come out with another bombshell article. Pilots coming forward. We were chasing UFOs. Let's talk about it in the soapbox. So yes, the New York Times comes out with a bombshell story that the United States ATIP program was studying UFOs. Now this was done under Harry Reid, supposedly. I gotta be honest, I like the fact that this is becoming mainstream. I don't necessarily buy all of the threads of this, but fair enough. This is supposedly the way it goes. The ATIP program. Various videos were released to the public. Now, these videos weren't rustled from the Pentagon. These videos were given from the Pentagon. That's the catch. That's the key point. Which is why I always ask, why are these videos in the public? Why are they now deciding to let this information come out? But for whatever the reason, it is what it is. Tucker Carlson is talking to one of these pilots. And I have to be honest, the most interesting part to all of this is this part. It's like, yeah, they put the videos up, but you can't really see anything in the videos per se. You see something taking place. You hear the pilots talking. It's when those pilots say, I've been in the military for 18 years. And yes, I was in their airplane that was running a mission over this particular area. And I was in my plane and looking at that object, and it's like nothing I've ever seen before. And then you get another pilot. Same thing. I've been in the military for 17 years. Look at all my decorations. Look at this shit. And I was looking at this craft. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. And then you hear Luis Elizondo come out, the guy who's running the program. And all of these people step out of the shadows. And they say, yes, I was a part of this program. And yes, there's something to see here. Then the Navy turns around and says, look, we're not, so obtuse that we can't ignore this. All of these people are coming out. They were part of the military establishment. Yes, we have to take this seriously. Is there a threat in our skies? And then the Navy comes out and says, our protocol has changed. We will now change the way in which we receive information on UFOs based on all of this information that was in the public that we could not deny, based on the updates that they've been getting. That's the most interesting part to me. Now, it gets weird because the Navy says, yes, we're going to change our protocols, which means they're not changing their protocols for no reason. They're changing the protocols because they're seeing something. Their pilots have been observing something. But we're not telling you what we're observing. That's the part that gets a little weird and dicey. And I don't know how that withstands anything. That's a confirmation. A branch of the military has just confirmed that there's something in our skies that they don't necessarily know what it is that's invading our airspace. That's a confirmation. But be careful what you wish for. There are a lot of UFO guys out there. Be careful what you wish for. That has political consequences. Be careful what you wish for. This is one of those pilots. I think this is his name, David Fravor. Listen to this gentleman's story and what he was seeing up in those skies.
For decades, often mocked for talking about it, but maybe they shouldn't be mocked. Commander David Fravor spent 18 years as a naval aviator, a pilot. In 2004, he had an unforgettable encounter with an aircraft he said was defying the laws of physics. Former Commander Fravor joins us tonight. Thanks a lot for coming on tonight. Tell us what you saw.
Well, we had launched on a routine training mission. When we joined up, we were told that the event was going to be canceled and that we have real-world tasking, and we were sent out to the west. Now, take in mind that this has taken place about 100 miles southwest of San Diego, between San Diego and Ensenada, Mexico,
yep.
On a clear, perfect day, blue waters. We get out to the spot where they tell us it's at. We start looking around, and both airplanes see a disturbance in the water and a white 40-foot long tic-tac shaped object just hovering above the water, going forward, back, left, right. There's no rotor wash, there's no wings, nothing. So as we drive around in a clockwise flow, we get to about the 9 o'clock position, and I said, well, I'm going to go down and check it out, and the other jet is going to stay high. So as we go down, when we get to the 12 o'clock position, it starts to mirror us. So it's in a clockwise flow, and it's on the opposite side of the circle from us. And we continue this. It's in a climb. We're in a descent. We're getting a great look at it. This whole thing takes about probably up to 5 minutes from the time we show up. I get over to the 8 o'clock position. It's at about the 2 o'clock position, and I decide I'm going to go and see what it is, and it's about 2,000 feet below me. And I cut across the circle, and as I get within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerates to the south in about 2 seconds and disappears.
What would you estimate the speed?
Oh, well above supersonic.
The pilots often, over the course of the years, because by the way, the United States didn't just start studying UFOs. There have been other tests or other, let's say, investigations into UFOs that have been somewhat big. And, this goes back to the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, Project Blue Book. That guy gets out of it and becomes a ufologist studying into UFOs because he said the other UFO test that the U.S. Government was running was a sham. My point is very basic. These pilots have been seeing things for years. This has not just started. They're British pilots. France opened their books. These pilots have been seeing things for years. They've just been somewhat scuttling this stuff and putting this stuff kind of under the covers. It's interesting, though, that this stuff is starting to come into daylight, where they're talking about it. This is mainstream. Like, this stuff is taking place on the airways. I could show you interviews with CNN in the same way. She asked Luis Elizondo, so do you believe that we've been visited? And Luis Elizondo says, based on my scientific investigation, yes. How do you deal with that answer? They cut to like a Pepsi commercial. The man who's been studying this stuff for the past few years have just told you that, yes, it looks like you're being visited. And we go into this capitalistic selling of a product. I love it. All right, so that's one pilot. Another one, pages of the New York Times. So this is Flight Magazine. What is your name? Fighter Jets World. Okay, Fighter Jets World. But Fighter Jets World is just talking about the story from the New York Times. All right. The pilot's account point to a major sensor upgrade on the aircraft that's the presence of these craft made detectable at all. They're saying that there was an upgrade to the sensors of the airplanes, and that has allowed them to see these craft more often than they were otherwise. In the vision of one of the incidents recorded by Lieutenant Graves' squadron while performing training maneuvers between Virginia and Florida off the Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier, the silhouette of the strangely elongated object was caught in one of the jet's cameras. You're getting it all. This is where they were. These are the people who are involved. These were it's a legitimating factor. Prior, you would get somebody who would come out of the shadows and says, yes, I was there when this took place. And all of it could be, there was no admission from the standpoint of the military, so that person was just kind of out there alone. There was no way to legitimate the story. In this case, all of it is legitimate. All of it is above board. These are mainstream media outlets that's having conversation with pilots that were saying they're seeing fucking UFOs. And when asked, what is it? I don't want to speculate. Why don't you want to speculate? Because it seemed like they were under intelligent control. That's why. And it seemed like they were doing things that we couldn't do. We didn't know what they were. We had no idea where they came from. And they were doing things that we couldn't figure out what they were doing. Here's the catch. Based on the speeds that these things were going, if it was a human being that was in a craft, it would have crushed a person. Either they are in inertial dampeners, or there was no person involved in the process. Either way, it is fascinating that this is being talked about in mainstream. Like, you have no idea how much of an astonishing change this is. In the same way that there's a change from the standpoint of, not being able to even bring up public option to now talking about Medicare for all. This is a drastic change in perspective that has taken place almost in a blink of an eye. Almost in a blink of an eye. Be careful what you wish for. There may be unforeseen consequences for getting this information out. Like, this information is not going to come out in a vacuum. If you freak people out, those people will want a response. Let's keep going. These things will be out there all day. Keeping all aircraft in the air requires a significant amount of energy. With the speeds we observe, 12 hours in the air is 11 hours longer than we'd expect. Meaning, as fast as these things were going, what power source were they using to keep them in the air? This gets, God, man, you have no idea how many questions this raises. The persistence of these craft was in no way the strangest thing about them. Beyond being able to drop tens of thousands of feet in a matter of seconds or two, and possessing flight characteristics that are unattainable to our known technology, the unannounced visitors will look nothing like nothing else on Earth. This is on the pages of the New York Times. Lieutenant Graves and his team reported the sightings to the U.S. Department of Defense Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program run by the Pentagon. However, they were only ever described as striking series of incidents. Oh, I love it! I love it! Striking series of incidents. It's like Pravda. We're going to change it. People don't need to know what that is. What's even more important about them is that the events took place recently as 2015, over a decade after the now famous Nimitz incident, or the so-called Tic Tac. Here's the famous gimbal video. All right, this is a gimbal video. That's the video that you're seeing in Tucker Carlson. Before the mid-2000s, Navy tactical fighter aircraft were equipped with mechanically scanned array, MSA, pulse dropper radar system with varying capabilities and power outputs. FA-18s, Hornets, were largely equipped with, okay, this is getting to technical stuff, but as production of the Super Hornets, the AN APG-79 active electronic scan array radar was installed in place of the AN APG-73. Essentially, they upgraded their radar system. The pilots began noticing the objects after the 1980s. Air radar was upgraded to a more advanced system. As one fighter jet after the next got the new radar, pilots began picking up the objects but ignoring what they long thought was false radar tracks. Think about this. There are all sorts of pilots seeing these things. That means these things are all over the place. They're all over the place. Something is invading your airspace. Now, I don't like to use the term invade. That means I would argue they were probably always here. But something, from the standpoint of the military, something is in our airspace and we don't know what that something is. And these pilots are picking up these things all over the place. What do you do with that information? Oh, what do you do with that information? All right. Yes, I get excited over this because this has major implications. But he said the objects persisted, showing up at 30,000 feet, 20,000 feet, even sea level. They could even accelerate, slow down, and hit hypersonic speeds. Lieutenant Asian said he interacted twice with the objects. The first time, picking up the object on the radar, he sent his plane to merge with it. Flying 1,000 feet below it, he said he should have been able to see with his helmet camera, but he could not, even though the radar told him that it was there. His radar said this object is here, but he couldn't see it. A few days later, Lieutenant Akian said a training missile on his left jet locked on the object, and his infrared camera picked it up as well. I knew I had it. I knew it was not a false hit, he said, but still, I could not pick it up visually. He couldn't see it. He couldn't see it. His human faculty could not see the object. Think about what that means. You're standing there, you're looking at something, for whatever reason you can't see it. Now, you as a human being see things through electrical signals, meaning, light hits something, it goes to your brain, blah. But what if you are seeing it, but your brain is told to not register that signal, if that makes sense? Like, from an electronic standpoint, yes, the thing is there. You being able to see it may be blocked by some other faculty. I think that's fascinating. He wasn't able to see it with his eyes. But again, your eyes are seeing through electrical impulses. You don't see the world in this kind of direct way. There's an interlayer between your brain and the world. Your brain picks up the stuff and, registers through electrical signals. I'm saying that poorly. You don't interact with your world directly. You interact with your world through your senses. Those senses, however, have to go through a brain that registers those senses. It's like if you take a lab test and you're somebody gums with the results, so that it doesn't necessarily pick up the item. However, the electronic signals aren't limited by that. They pick up what they pick up, unless there's something to camouflage the signal. But in this case, they're saying that it was an update. Asked what he thought the objects were, the pilot refused to speculate. Look, about just one point, because I don't want to belabor this, because I could talk about this all day. This is on the New York Times. Now, nobody would say these are aliens. Nobody would say that. By the same token, it would be utterly absurd to leave that off the table. There's a strange bias that we have on this planet with this notion of something from outside of outer space. With our meager technology, we've been sending things to Mars, we've been sending things to the cosmos, we've been sending things to the moon. Why wouldn't something that has more advanced technology do the same thing? Also, why do you believe that this planet would be the only one with life? And not just the only one with life. Why do you believe that it would be the epitome of life in the cosmos? I think it is infinitely possible that something is visiting our shores. I think it makes all the sense in the world that as our technology increases, we get to the point of being able to detect something that may have been here all along. But I am terrified by this. Like understand what this means. You have a military, you have Donald Trump, that's the president of the United States. You have John Bolton, that's whispering in his ear in regards to what he needs to do from the standpoint of military policy. This information is hitting the New York Times. Tucker Carlson is talking about it on Fox News. You can't avoid it from the standpoint of ignoring what it is, because the Navy itself has just said there's something that is in our skies that we don't necessarily know what it is that we're going to start taking information on. If they admit it up to that point, I would wager that there is more information and talking about it that has gone on behind the scenes on a much higher level. What does that mean from a technological standpoint? If something is visiting our shores, is it using oil to do it? No, it's not. It's not. If it's visiting our shores, what are the physics that got it here? Meaning physics tell us it's impossible to do that. Well, clearly it's not if that's taking place. What does it mean for science? When you've ripped the chains off the scientists, where they're like, oh wait, this box that we thought we were in, we're not in at all. Like you've helped solve part of the equation. If you and I are playing chess and there's this problem that you're having a difficult time solving, and I'm saying, look, I guarantee you there's a way to do that. You look at that problem in a much different way as opposed to thinking that there was no way to solve that particular issue. Like, this is a drastic change in the way we run our society if this becomes that much more mainstream. Also, what it means from the standpoint of, hey, there's something in our skies, we need Space Force. Or we need to spend a ton more money in order to, $1 trillion is not enough anymore. Maybe we need $2 trillion. Hey, maybe we need to come up with weapons platforms that just kind of float above the atmosphere that shoots at things that are visiting our planet. I'm telling you, man, be careful what you ask for. Let's see. Mr. Krillin, fuck the radar. He should have used the Force like the Luke. He should have used the Force. Darren Levy, did you get my message, Jamal, about Stacey Abrams at Bilderberg? I did not get that message. But fair enough. Gardner, you can't take anything off the table, but I would say that the chance that an alien is less than 5%. The question is if there's life in the universe or not. You always conflate the two issues. No. I don't conflate the two. Look, you don't really know what the likelihood of the alien thing is. How do you put a percentage on that? There's no way. You don't necessarily know what's going on behind the scenes. If there's anything going on behind the scenes. Meaning, you only really know what this is. You don't know what that is. And because that's an X factor, it's difficult to put any kind of probability on it. That's the first point. Whether there is life in the universe or not, I don't know. I think it's an odd argument to say there's not. I take that as kind of as a foregone conclusion. The question is there life visiting us? That's a different question. My answer is yes, I think so. Even if that's a 5%, I think so. But we can disagree on that. We can disagree on that. No, I don't believe in that. I don't buy the shape-shifting stuff, the what's his name stuff. No, I've only ever dealt with this issue from the standpoint of what are the politics, what does it mean, and what's true. Now, what's true gets sketchy in this. So let's take absolute truth off the table. And let's just deal with from the standpoint of what is mainstream media now allowing as the limit of conversation on this. And the limit of conversation is there's something visiting or there's something out there that we don't know what it is. Meaning just the UFO part. They accept the UFO part. That's the new part. That's the new limit to which they talk about. So now the question becomes, well, what is that? And if these pilots are saying these guys look like they're functioning under intelligent command, well, that has to be put into the conversation. I'm just saying, this is a fascinating, it's an interesting conversation, let's say it that way. And the range of debate on this issue has changed almost overnight. So I'll say it that way. I'll put it that way. All right, guys, I will end this here because I don't want to go too long. Then, like I said, I could talk about the UFO stuff all day. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all. And that's it.